I got criticized for being too rational and drawing on too many examples during an argument with my boss. What is the most stupid thing someone has said during an argument? One time I was 4 minutes late to my shift because of unexpected traffic. When I come in, some girl is late as well. My boss is tearing into us about how horrible we are. I'm never late. She always is. She's giving a sob story about her dog being sick. She always says a variation of someone being sick. Then my boss asked me why I was late and I said, no excuse. I messed up, and I'm sorry, and he flipped out. No excuse? Ha ha ha. If I was late for a meeting and I didn't give my boss an excuse, he would fire my butt, so I told him that I was being honest and didn't want to bulls him with a sob story. He didn't give a crap really. Then a few weeks later someone gave him an excuse for being late and he said he doesn't want to hear any excuses when someone is late. That it doesn't matter what someone says. How do you know how far away that star is? Have you been there? I was in the midst of explaining light years and other things to a co-worker of mine. Of course it's what's needed, but what your boss actually said to you was, frick you. Don't make me look like a freaking moron again, okay? Haha, I know. She's had it in for me since day one. She was calling me patronizing for using a bit above standard vocabulary and using hand gestures. Total facepalm of a comment from her. Yeah, well, your refrigerator. 5-year-old brother was losing an argument at the time, and like a lot of people who are on the losing side, he came up with the biggest word he could think of in an attempt to confuse me. It kinda worked. He just meant you were cold-hearted and full of food, obviously. My girlfriend's mom started calling me a spoiled rich kid, so I reminded her that both my parents had lost their jobs over the last 6 months, and that all of my money came from a job I got by myself. GF's mom proceeds to kick me out of the house for talking back to her, and completely forgets that she was insulting me to my face. Of course you talked back. It was a discussion. I've gotten the you always think you're right when I've shown someone to be incorrect a few times. Of course I think I'm correct when I'm defending myself in a disagreement. I wouldn't go through the trouble of defending my position, or even holding it, if I thought I was wrong. Bingo. And the person arguing with you wouldn't constantly argue back if they didn't believe the same thing. Hypocrisy is silly. Not an answer to your question, but I believe it's relevant. My chemistry teacher in HS, also a math whiz and just a smart guy all around, was pulled over by a cop saying he was doing 75 in a 50 zone. The cop writes down what street he began his stop and what street he finally pulled my teacher over to. My teacher decides to go court to fight the ticket because he claims to have not been speeding. According to the evidence stated by the police officer, in order for the cop to have pulled him over when he said he did, he would have had to accelerate from 0 miles per hour, was parked on the side of the road, to 270 miles per hour in the course of about 1.5 miles in order to catch up with and pull him over. The evidence was undeniable, but the judge said he was being arrogant and condescending. Gave him the ticket anyways. According to Arthur Schopenhauer, being more intellectually capable than others is the ultimate insult. This is exactly like every conversation I've had with my mother, ever. Some people draw no distinction between reality and perception. I'm frequently accused of being too logical when I argue with my dad. That's when I know I've won. Also, I feel like Spark, which is a plus. I recently had an employee tell me that I don't understand how difficult his job is. I freaking invented his job, performed it myself for many years, and hired him so that I could focus on other tasks. Classic arguing mistake. You can't use logic on someone who is having an emotional reaction. All they understand at that point is emotive responses. In order to actually win or actually get your point across, you need to placate them in a neutral manner, then talk to them later when they're calm. That's when you should bring up the logical examples of why you're right and they're a freaking moron. Caution: this won't work on incredibly stupid people. You can't reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. Ben Goldacre. My so frequently says, why are you asking for examples? Stop being a dang lawyer to me when we argue. It infuriates me to no end. I'm sorry, but you can't just make blind accusations about someone's past or present behavior and then refuse to give even one example. My friends say that my girlfriend's love letters to me sounds like a lawyer wrote them. It's okay. I think it's sexy. I was writing an article about taxes going up on cigarettes for a small newsletter paper we had at work. My manager told me it was too political, and when I asked her, how is it political? It states that taxes will be raised on cigarettes and lists methods of quitting for people who think it's time to quit. There's absolutely nothing political about it, and it's not biased in any way. There are just facts. Her reply, well, what are facts? Really? UHH. Are you freaking kidding me? How are you my boss? My boss and I had to travel to a different city to defend myself from the security department. Accusation that I had stolen the CEO's security pass and was using it to access areas I was not permitted to access. We worked for a major post-production company. When we get there, it turns out that the parking facility in our company building was using the same length codes. And by a staggering coincidence, my parking pass had the same code as the CEO's internal pass. I kept them both on a lanyard on my neck as I ride a motorcycle. The head of security said to me, you need to pay attention to what you are doing. Don't use the incorrect pass again or we will terminate you. I think that is the dumbest argument I ever heard. As we left the building, I said to my boss, I am not coming to work until you get me a new parking pass. My mom's pretty religious. She likes to start with me sometimes. I get the old, you're too smart for your own good. I never understood why anyone would use that as an argument. You understand too many things. It's preventing you from sharing my misunderstanding. That's what she's telling you. My mother once accused me of being too open-minded. I responded by telling her I drew the line at believing that was an actual thing to be concerned about. My friend got diagnosed with cancer today. My Spanish teacher, on why she kept forgetting to give me assignments. And then she's give me zeros because I never did them because she never gave them to me. Whenever I asked her about it, she told me I wasn't supposed to sass her because her friend got diagnosed with cancer and she was stressed. I hated her. Urge to kill rising. I had an ex who would pull that crap literally every time I would argue with him about something he was wrong, objectively wrong, not subjectively wrong, about. Why the frick do you have to be right all the time because you're freaking claiming that 2 and 2 equals 5? That's why I'm arguing with you. Of course, once I brought logic into the argument, he would plug his ears and went all la la la, I can't hear you. I literally can't understand people like that. I get that emotions are a thing that make people irrational, but if someone says that the sky is red and you direct their eyes to the sky and make them see that the sky is blue and then they get angry with you for always needing to be right, I can't. It's because they feel stupid, which embarrasses them, which they take as this person embarrassed me. Frick them. It's stupid and immature, but I've seen it a million times. Looking at security cameras, I'm telling this person that we'll never see what she wants to see, but we're looking anyway. So I'm placating this person, and we're looking at footage from 2.5 days ago. So we look at a specific camera in the target area, looking in the target area, and I say, okay, can you see now? Why we can't do anything about it, she says to me, you aren't even looking. Just pan the camera to the right a little and you'll see it. I wanted to slap her face off. Okay, now enhance. One of my co-workers was asked to gather user statistics for something. Once the statistics were gathered and sent to the boss, said boss called co-worker into the office and berated him for using combative statistics, when the co-worker just gave the boss what he was asking for. I was arguing over the phone with my sister and I became angry and told her I could no longer continue the conversation because I was too upset and I would call her later. She told me that I wasn't allowed to get off the phone with her because I had called her. Only the person who has been called is allowed to end the conversation. Because I was the one who called her, I was now stuck talking for as long as she wanted to talk. If the world worked that way, everybody better clear their schedules before picking up the telephone. I was arguing with my stepfather about good and evil and he told me half of everyone's body was good and the other half was evil, right down the middle. So if your left half is good, the right half is evil and vice versa. On a different occasion, my stepmother was arguing for creationism and asked me where I thought cell phones came from. then began to assert that cell phones were a gift from God. They say the internet turns people dumb, but in my experience it's just not that way. Shitcock. I often tell my friend that being right is not always enough, because he is constantly getting into arguments with his supervisors. That said, this is not one of these cases. Defend yourself if it could cost you your job. Sun TZ would tell you that you shouldn't fight because you can win the battle. You should fight only when you must fight to win the war. I have a friend who consistently berates me for using the internet as a resource. Granted, certain sites on the internet can be trusted and you have to understand credibility, but when 10/10 sites including .orgs and .govs agree on a point, you can pretty much count it as fact. We got into this argument based on does shaving make hair grow back faster. I said no. He said yes. I googled it and the first 15 pages all agreed with me that no, it does not, in the long run, make you grow any more facial hair than you would have had originally, although it does make it grow back faster for the first 1/4 inch. It pisses me off because he took this to the next level, and in regards to anything I cite the internet from he denies, even like fricking scholarly articles online. Sure, some internet citers are sketchy, but I don't think Yale EDU is giving out fake info. You mad? The easiest way people be out of an argument that they're going to lose. It gets me every freaking time. Well, you're just biased because you're feminist. The argument was about whether the guy had taken the can of cherry coke from the fridge that I had bought, or whether the can he was currently drinking from was one that he had brought and mine just magically went missing. I don't even. In my philosophy class in high school, there was always one knob who, whenever he was losing an argument, decided to pull out, well, how do we know the world exists? I think this is just to distract you from the argument you just won. I mean, there are two logical answers. 1. It does. We are arguing in it right now. Shut up. 2. We are in the matrix and it actually doesn't exist. Even if 2 is right, it doesn't change the argument at all. He was still wrong. My crazy old kindergarten teacher, many moons ago. Pulp Fiction snazzy seems to raise his hand too much. He needs to give other students the opportunity to answer questions. Joke's on you, lady. I didn't care about anything educational for the next 12 years. The other students' lack of knowledge wasn't your responsibility, nor was the teacher obliged to pick you to answer the question. Me. But please educate yourself on the issue a little bit instead of just ranting against the issue as a whole. I then shared several links with information about the topic at hand, gun control in NYC. He seems to think that making guns illegal will stop people from getting shot, even though they're already illegal here. I don't need to educate myself on something to be against it. That's all. Yay for people who are proud of their ignorance and feel that they should be allowed to make laws about things they don't understand at all. The part of this that really upset me is that this man is a homosexual and gay rights activist, and his logic is exactly what people use to promote discrimination against homosexuals people fear and don't understand. So they instantly hate it and want to make it illegal. Oh my god. As I read through these comments, I think I've found a new support group. Logical Thinkers Anonymous. We don't like people making baseless, asinine arguments or accusations. Yet, when we demonstrate, in detail, to people how they're wrong, usually in situations that more or less warrant a rebuttal, we are attacked with ad hominem, emotional knee, jerk balls, and further accusations, usually completely hypocritical. Reminds me of a good Chuck Palahniuk quote. You can tell people the truth, but they'll never believe you until the event. In the meantime, the truth will just pee them off and get you in a lot of trouble. Survivor. That one clip where Bill Nye was told that he was using ad hominem attacks because he was attacking the reasoning of his opponent. It's pretty hard to beat the stupidity of that. After using a word the person didn't understand. So you think you can win the argument with some fancy words? Irregardless, I am right. You know I am and are too proud to admit it. This man was trying to argue that Doctor Who is an American-made show. I know this will get buried, but I'm getting a demotion at my job because I sold too much product and in return made too much in commission, in a sales position. Yeah, let that one sink in. I think we had the same boss. She was a moron and only drew from emotional responses, so me being another female speaking solely objectively, her head nearly exploded every time I didn't give her the reaction she expected. I agree with the comment below. You really have to pick your battles or find a different job. I found a new job. Maybe I am stubborn. My ex-husband once claimed that my mom owed us money because I should have inherited part of my father's estate. He died when I was an infant, and when he died my mom was left with 3 small children. She inherited a small farm and raised us by herself. Ah crap. A thread made for me and I'm late to the party. Ex-girlfriend, you always use logic. If you love philosophy so much, why don't you just butt frick it? Mother, logic is for the classroom. For life you need to use love and family. Random guy who claims he reached nirvana. Right, on your level of understanding there is no proof for objective moral values, but on my level of understanding, I clearly saw it. The truth can't travel between levels. And finally, my freaking professor. Reason and Western philosophy were created by cold-hearted European men to seize power over women, the poor, and minorities. All truths are relative, as evidenced by my special witch root that cured my sore throat but not other people's sore throats. Laughing at my so's question when it was the weirdest question possible at the time. We were just watching some old Disney movies when suddenly, do you think you can put almonds in a shepherd's pie? Then she was mad for the rest of the movie because I couldn't stop laughing at the absurdity of the question. However, we settled it by actually trying and it wasn't half bad. Just crush the almonds and sprinkle them onto the shepherd's pie after it's done cooking. That may or may not have been the first step in an elaborate cyanide murder attempt. I don't get why anti-voting fraud laws are called racist. Liberals are really freaking stupid to call them racist. Seriously, it's the liberals are racist. You know what? I don't even want to talk about this. This will just be another argument. The butthole didn't even let me state my opinion. He just called me a freaking stupid racist and didn't let me talk because he was afraid of an argument. I had a discussion with a friend about the Romney-Obama debate the other night. He was talking about how much better Romney performed. I agreed with him, but told him to make sure he fact checks both sides because I knew Romney had told several lies that night. His response: "But can you honestly tell me you've never lied before? You've never lied to get what you want?" Mother, just because I used to tell my mom I did my homework when I hadn't doesn't mean politicians can lie directly to their constituents when trying to attain, arguably, the most powerful position on the planet. I briefly had a very Republican, fiscally conservative roommate in college who was not very bright and didn't have a lot of life experience. I avoided political discussions, but he brought them up all of the time. They usually ended as soon as they started with me saying "actually" and citing facts to back up my argument. One day he got sick of it all and said, "You always disagree with me every time we have an argument. If I said this wall was black, you'd say it was white." The wall was in fact white, which I pointed out to him. He stormed out of the room. I was told it did not matter if the evidence was clearly false. They had sworn statements from multiple witnesses. Clearly lying or not, there were still witnesses. Took almost 2 years to clear that up, and I will still be put out of the army soon as a result. Delayed promotion, automatic honorable discharge. My ex and I were having a fight. Well, he was having a fight. I was trying to avoid one, and he kept asking questions and then yelling more before I could answer them. When he stopped to take a breath, I answered a few of his questions. He then yelled at me about answering. What he said were rhetorical questions. Then he asked, "Do you understand what I mean? That I don't want you to answer the questions." Long pause. Me, was I supposed to answer that question? He then proceeds to kick and punch the bedroom door. I never got an answer. That is hilarious. I can imagine this scene vividly. One professor of mine said, "You're thinking too logically." I thereafter refused to take him seriously. Depends. He could be talking about literature and you're taking it at face value, or perhaps too logically, if that makes any sense. Similar situation. I was told by HR, who sat in, at my request, on a conference with my butthole of a former boss, executive, that I was to blame for his coming across the table in a physically threatening manner, attempt to intimidate me, because I was too calm. Who knew calm could incite, let alone excuse such behavior? Note, I am a woman. They were both men. I'd been with the company for 6 years. 5 of which I'd worked for a different executive in the same role with such professionalism and success as to be nominated for and receive the most prestigious award offered by the organization less than 6 months prior. Also, I was once reprimanded by a supervisor, not my own, at a different job for being too happy. Apparently, maintaining a consistent level of personal joy when working at a state agency with miserable people is considered unprofessional. You're just saying that because you hate. Maybe I hate cause of that. If it comes to any discussion in my house, I'm immediately wrong for having a pre-existing opinion. I don't care what Merriam-Webster says. At first I was dumbfounded. Then when I regained my senses I realized the argument was over. How are you supposed to argue with someone who says the definition of a word is not the definition of that word? If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.